to speak to you about a topic that troubles a lot of Muslims. It has in the past, and it continues to trouble a lot of them today. We can say that a lot of the doubts that Muslim men and women are experiencing can be traced back to what we are about to be speaking about today. If we were to ask any person here in this room what are the pillars of Islam, most of us would know they are 5 that represent the outward things that we are supposed to do, the physical elements of the religion. If we were to talk about the level higher, and that is Iman, faith, what are the pillars of that? Most of us will know that they are 6. 6 pillars of faith that represent what we are supposed to do inwardly. To believe in Allah, the angels, the books, the messengers, the day of judgment, and Qadar, the topic of today. Qadar, the topic of this lecture, divine decree. Somebody may say, how come that these are the pillars of faith? Whilst we know that the things that we are required to believe in, they are many. We believe in so many things as Muslims, things that are unseen, things that we haven't smelt, seen, or touched. But why from the many were these 6 elements of faith given the title of Rukun, pillars of faith? Meaning, you and I, we cannot be considered Muslims till we accept every one of those 6. And I say, dear brother, dear sister, the answer to this from the many is because of the influence that these pillars of faith, these 6, have in liberating the mind and the heart and the soul of a Muslim. Let me demonstrate. Pillar number 1, belief in Allah. That has a huge effect in liberating the Muslim's mind from every false attachment, whether it's to an idol, to a man, to a woman, to money, to a desire, to an idol, whatever it may be, it liberates you. That is pillar number 1, belief in Allah. Pillar number 2, belief in the angels. That has a huge benefit in liberating the Muslim from needing to find an angelic example of how Allah is to be worshipped. That is number 2. Pillar number 3, belief in the prophets. That liberates us from needing to find a human example of how Allah is to be thanked and worshipped. Pillar number 4, belief in the books, the scriptures. That liberates us from needing to find divine guidance, scripture, as per how Allah is to be worshipped and how to live an upright, happy, depressed-free life in the life of this world. Pillar number 5, belief in the day of judgment. That liberates us from the life of this world. And therefore, when you find that any element of dunya which you may have missed out on has left you, you don't collapse like a ton of bricks. You don't break down without repair. You remember there is a day of judgment where Allah will give you your fantasies and your desires and your yearnings and the things you missed out on today in the fullest and the purest of forms. On the day of judgment, it liberates you. As for pillar number 6, this also liberates you. What is pillar number 6? Belief in Qadar. Belief in divine decree. This liberates the Muslim mind. So that when something comes to you and you did not want it to come to you, you remain happy. Or something that does not come to you but you wanted it to come to you, you remain happy because you believe in something called Qadar, divine decree. And notice, dear brother, dear sister, how belief in Qadar, divine decree, is number 6 in the list. The bottom of the list, or if you wish, the last of the list. Almost as if we are being told that if your belief in Qadar, divine decree, is in place, is in check, then every other of the 5 beliefs will also be in check. If your belief to Qadar, however, is crooked, then your belief in the remaining 5 will also be crooked. Today I would like to share with you a few thoughts to speak about Qadar. And I guarantee you, dear brother, dear sister, if you give me an attentive ear for 25 or so minutes, you will walk away from this lecture with a tangible shift, a major change in the way that you approach any one of the problems that comes your way, be it marital, Be it social, be it financial, be it spiritual. How will we speak about qadar, divine decree today? Not from an academic perspective. That has its place, that has its sitting, that has its time. I would like to present you, dear brother, dear sister, with 4 gateways. 4 doors, imagine them. And my request, my pitch today is that any problem you have, pass it through each one of those 4 doors. And what will be from the other side? You will have a problem that has diminished. You will find a problem that has diminished in size and life that you will enjoy. 4 gateways that are signposted with names. If you walk through them, your understanding of qadar will be as best and it can be as a human being, and you will be a happy Muslim. So lend me an attentive ear. Gateway number 1, take note of this on your phone, on paper, anything you may have. Gateway number 1. This is al-imanu bi'adlillahi tam. To believe that Allah is absolutely just. Therefore, before you say, why me? Why not her? Was that fair? Why did Allah Almighty send that my way? I wanted this, they didn't. How come they've got their hands on it, not me? This is not just. Somebody may say, astaghfirullah. I say to you, remember gateway number 1, the absolute justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pass your problem through that door. What is the evidence for this gateway, you may say to me? I say to you, Allah Almighty said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَظْلِمُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. Allah Almighty does not do injustice to even the weight of an atom. Allah Almighty said, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Your Lord does not do injustice to His servants. Allah Almighty, He said, وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. Your Lord does not do injustice to anyone. When you say Umar, what do you think? Umar ibn al-Khattab, what's the first word that comes into your head? You think of justice. A man who was so just that his justice extended even to the animals of Iraq, miles away from Medina. When you say Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, what word comes to your head? You say Adl, justice. Who was so just that when he died, shepherds saw their animals fighting, so they said it must be a sign that Umar has died in Medina. Justice. What then, therefore, do you make about a Lord, a God, Allah, who has given Himself the name, according to many scholars, Al-Adl, the most just? What type of justice will He offer? Even if you don't see it that way, pass your problem through this gateway that says Allah Almighty is the most just. And brothers and sisters, I would like to share something with you. Believing in this one gateway has a profound effect in removing so much sorrow from your life. In fact, the very dua, prayer, supplication of sorrow that we make when you are down, there is a reminder in it that Allah Almighty is just. Do you know the dua? Listen to it, understand it, and try to memorize it. The narration which Ahmad narrates on the authority of the companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the dua of sorrow is as follows. Allahumma inni abduk. O Allah, I am your servant. Ibnu abdik, son of your servant. Ibnu amatik, son of your maid servant. Nasiyati biyadik, my forelock is in your hands. Adlun fiyya qada'uk, your command, madin fiyya hukmuk, your command over me will always be executed. Adlun fiyya qada'uk, and your qadar, your decree over me is always just. Underline that. Your decree over me is always just. And then you say in your dua, As'aluka bi kulli ismin huwa lak. I ask you by virtue of every name that you have. Sammayta bihi nafsak, that you have given yourself. أو أنزلته في كتابك, or a name you have taught us in your book. أو علمته أحدا من خلقك, or a name that you may have taught to one of your creation. أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك, or a name that you have kept secret to yourself. أن تجعل القرآن ربيع قلبي, that you make the Quran the life of my heart. ونور صدري, and the light of my chest. وجلاء حزني, and the departure from my grief. وذهاب همي, and the release from my sorrow. He said, anybody who says this dua, Allah will replace his grief with happiness. The companions, they said, Messenger of Allah, should we memorize this? He said, every Muslim who hears these words should memorize it. This is gateway number one. Do you remember it? The gateway that says Allah is most just, therefore expect good of Him and don't doubt Him. There is justice in what has come your way. Gateway number two. I hope you're taking note of this journey and where we are in the map. Gateway number two, al-imanu bi'ilmi Allahi al-muhit bi-kulli shay, belief that Allah Almighty's knowledge encompasses all things. It is essential if you want your belief in divine decree, qadar, to be in place, to pass your problem through that second gateway as well. That Allah knows. Therefore, before you say, how come? Does Allah not see me? Can Allah not hear me? I remind you of this gate. Allah sees all and He hears all. There is no sky that obscures His vision from another sky, and there is no sound that obscures His hearing from another sound. What is private to you is public to Him, and what is hidden to you is revealed to Him. Allah Almighty, He said, أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى. Does He not know that Allah can see? Allah Almighty said to Prophet Musa and Harun, إِنَّنِي مَعَكُمَا أَسْمَعُ وَأَرَى. I am with you both. I hear and I see. Allah Almighty, He said, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لَكَ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ أَحَاطَ بِالنَّاسِ. We said to you, O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I have encircled people completely. Allah has knowledge. And Allah Almighty said, think about this ayah. وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ. With Allah are the keys to the unseen. لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. No one has knowledge of them except Allah. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. And He knows everything that is happening on the land and in the sea. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. And there is no leaf that falls off any tree except that Allah has full knowledge of it. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ. Nor even a grain somewhere within the darknesses of the earth. وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. And nothing dry or moist except that it is with Allah, written in a clear record. That is the knowledge of Allah. Did you hear what I just recited? Every leaf that falls off every tree, Allah has perfect knowledge of it. How can you say Allah does not see me, or has Allah not heard my dua? Every leaf that falls off every tree, you mean from the moment of full capacity until it has shed its very last leaf, Allah has knowledge of it? I mean, dear brother, dear sister, if I was to ask you to take note of the leaves that are falling of the tree that is local to your house, just stand there with a piece of paper and a pen. Every time a leaf falls off, write down leaf number 1, leaf number 2, leaf number 3, until that tree has no leaves left on it. Could you do that? I mean, maybe you're able to do that by day, but at night you need to sleep. Maybe you're able to do that on a still day, but on a windy day, it's impossible. What if your task was up a notch a little bit? You need to take the note of every leaf that falls off every tree in your street, of every tree in your city, of every tree in your country. It's impossible. What about every tree in a rainforest somewhere? Take the Amazon rainforest. They predict that there are no less than 400 billion trees in the Amazon rainforest by itself. What about every tree on planet Earth? They predict that there are no less than 3 trillion trees on planet Earth. Who can do that? Allah said, not a leaf falls off any tree except that Allah has knowledge of it. How can you say, Allah, did you not see me? Allah, can you not hear me? Allah, don't you know what I'm going through? Pass your problem through the second gateway that says Allah sees all. He hears you, He sees you, He's aware of your situation. Why does He do the things He does? We'll get to that in a moment. But for now, understand He knows. And that is why the scholars, they say something which is actually quite difficult to get your head around. Actually impossible. They say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا كَانَ وَمَا هُوَ كَائِنٌ وَمَا سَيَكُونُ وَمَا لَمْ يَكُنْ لَوْ كَانَ كَيْفَ يَكُونُ. They say Allah has knowledge of what has happened in the past, and what is happening at present, and what shall happen in the future. Take note of number 4. And He has knowledge of those things that shall never happen. If they were to happen, how they would happen. Subhanallah. The infinite probabilities of circumstances that will never unfold, but if they were to unfold, Allah knows how they would unfold. And you say Allah does not know, or you doubt whether He hears your dua. Gateway number 1, Allah is the most just. Gateway number 2, Allah sees all and hears all. Gateway number 3, Al-Imanu bi-hikmati Allahi al-baligha. To believe that Allah Almighty is absolutely wise in everything He does. That will allow your heart to rest. And the amount of doubts that we may have in our hearts will come flushing out if we understand this third gateway. Allah is wise. And if you want a demonstration of this, a snippet preview of Allah's wisdom, I share with you a story that all of you are aware of. The story of the Prophet of Allah, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. If you and I had access to the script of the story of Yusuf, before the event unfolded, I can guarantee that most of us would choose to edit the script and change certain parts of it. I mean, you read in the script that this baby Yusuf is going to be thrown in a well. You'd say, why does that have to happen to a child? No, we'll change that. You see that his brothers will conspire against him to kill him. No, he doesn't have to go through that. We'll change that. You see, then he will be sent to Egypt and sold as a slave and separated from the arms of his mothers and fathers. Why should any child have to go through that? We'll change that. You read in the story that he's going to grow up to be a very handsome man, and then a woman will seduce him to do the act of immorality with her. You say, no, there's no need for that. We'll change that. And then you read that he's going to be thrown behind bars for some years. Why does he have to go through that? He's a prophet. He's got better things to do. We'll change that. But had Allah Almighty accepted those changes, would the story have panned out the way it did? And would the ending have been as perfect as it is today? The answer is no, to show you the wisdom of Allah and the ignorance of Ali and the ignorance of man. Allow me to demonstrate this. Rewind in the story of Yusuf. If Prophet Yusuf had not been the subject of conspiracy when his brothers wanted to kill him, Yusuf would not have thrown inside of the well. If Yusuf was not thrown inside of the well, he would not have been picked up by the Egyptian businessman. If he was not picked up by the businessman who sent him to Egypt, he would not have been sold as a slave. If he had not been sold as a slave, it means that he would not have been seduced by the wife of the ruler. If he was not seduced by the wife of the ruler, he would not have been put inside prison. But if he was not put inside of prison, his ability to interpret dreams would not have been discovered. If his ability to interpret dreams was not discovered, he would not have met the ruler. If he had not met the ruler, he would not have been able to save the whole of Egypt that was going to experience a famine. If he was not able to do that, then it means he would not have been appointed as a treasurer. And had he not been appointed as a treasurer, he would not have been able to invite his mother and father and his brothers from Palestine and live with him in Egypt. And they lived happily ever after. Subhanallah al-Azim. Hikmatun baligha, dear brother, dear sister. Wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can you doubt him? Everything that he sends your way, it's because it's what you need, even though it may not be in line with what you want. But trust him and allow these doubts to disappear once and for all. This is gateway number 3. Allah is the most wise in everything he does. And I here remember the story of a king and a minister. And the minister was, mashallah, like yourselves, a practicing person. And this minister had a statement that he would always repeat, which is, Al-khiratu fima yakhtaruhu Allah. Goodness is what Allah chooses. There is good in everything Allah chooses. And so one day he was eating with the king as usual. And the king, as he was cutting into his food, he passed the knife over his finger and he wounded himself and he started to bleed. And so the minister said to him, hey, don't worry. Al-khiratu fima yakhtaruhu Allah. Goodness is what Allah chooses. Be happy. So the king was like, are you gloating at my misery? It's like you're happy because of what happened to me. So the king said, your place will be the cell. And he sent him to prison. And as he was being taken away behind bars, the minister said, Al-khiratu fima yakhtaruhu Allah. Goodness is in what Allah chooses. The king had a habit of going out to hunt every evening. And he would go with his minister usually. But now the minister is not there. So he went by himself. And he was chasing a particular animal during his hunting exercise. And he was running so fast that he did not realize that he had just crossed the boundaries of his kingdom. And he'd entered now the sanctuary of idol-worshipping communities. So they caught him, they arrested him, they fettered him in chains. They took him to one of their biggest idols. They lowered him onto the ground. They placed a knife to his neck. They were on the verge of slaughtering him for their idol. And then they saw that his finger was damaged. So they said, this is not suitable as a sacrifice for our God. So they removed the chains and they set him free. So he realized that, yeah, it's true. Goodness is in everything Allah chooses. So he went back to the palace and he freed the minister. And he hugged him and apologized. And he said to him, I understand, you are right. Goodness is in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses. You are right, forgive me. But I have one question to ask you, O minister. I understand the wisdom behind the wound in my finger now. But I don't understand the wisdom in you being sent to the prison. And when you were making your way there, you said goodness is in everything that Allah chooses. What is the good in that? And then the minister said to him, Your Highness, who is it that usually goes out hunting with you? He said, you. He said, so when they discovered that your finger was cut, who would they have sacrificed in your place? He said, yourself. He said, therefore, goodness is in everything that Allah Almighty chooses. Allahu ya'lam, Allah knows, wa antum la ta'lamun, and man does not know. This is gateway number 3. Rest assured, allow your heart to rest. Allah knows. And Allah is wise. Gateway number 1, Allah is the most just. Gateway number 2, Allah Almighty has knowledge. He's aware. Gateway number 3, Allah Almighty is wise in everything He does, even if you don't see it that way. Gateway number 4, and I will conclude with this. Allahu yaf'alu ma yasha. Allah does whatever He wants. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this. Maybe it's not politically correct, and maybe it is not suitable for a stage, maybe it's not suitable for TV. But it is a reality when understanding qadar and things that Allah sends your way, or to the Muslim ummah at large. Allah does what He wants. Whose kingdom is it? It's His kingdom. The earth that you're walking on, it's His earth. The air that you are breathing, it's His air. The body that you are borrowing, that's His. He does what He wants. Who are you? Who am I? Petty creatures to challenge Allah Almighty's wisdom and to say, how come? Why me? Allah says, I do what I want. It's my kingdom. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu said in the Quran, speaking about Maryam, Mary, قالت ربي أنى يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر. She said, my Lord, how can I have a baby when no human being has ever touched me? What was the response from Allah? قال كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء. He said to her, thus it will be. Allah Almighty creates whatever He wants. Allah Almighty said in another ayah, وَمَن يُهِنِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِن مُكْرِمٍ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Whoever Allah humiliates, no one can honor. Allah does whatever He wants. Allah Almighty said in ayah number 3, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا اقْتَتَلُوا وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. If Allah wished, they would have never fighted one another, but Allah does whatever He wants. In ayah number 4, Allah Almighty said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُدْخِلُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah Almighty will allow the believers who do good deeds to enter gardens beneath which rivers flow. Indeed, Allah does whatever He wants. Never forget that. Why is my husband still abusing me, a sister may say? Despite all of the means and measures I have taken, I say to you, dear sister, be patient. With him or without him, but still show patience and realize it's the kingdom of Allah and He has not given permission for your husband to be a good man. Man may say, how come my dad hasn't embraced Islam? I've been giving him da'wah now for 15 years, still not being Muslim. I say to you, it's Allah's kingdom. He does what He wants. He's not given permission for your dad's heart to become Muslim. You say, how come I'm still poverty-ridden? I'm still a poor man, broke. Yet all of my friends are doing better than me. They haven't got half the skill set that I have. I say to you, it's Allah's kingdom. He does what He wants. He hasn't given you permission to be rich yet. Allah does whatever He wants. So therefore, allow your heart to settle. Be pleased, brothers and sisters. These are 4 gateways that I wanted to share with you. Remember them. The justice of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the wisdom of Allah, and Allah does whatever He wants. 4 gateways. Whenever you have an issue, be it Islamic or otherwise, pass your problems through these gates.